night for the Socceroos. Football never sleeps, football never stops. It's 1-0 Australia. Brandon Barilla doing it for Australia. And hits it, what a strike! But never ever right off the Socceroos.
Hello there and welcome to our Socceroo preview show where we'll be talking all things Socceroos. My name's Tris McManus with Simon Hill and Danny McBreen. Hello, gents.
Good to see you, Tris.
Huge week ahead for us, I guess. I mean, the final two games of our second qualifying round for the 2026 World Cup. And he says it's very, very important. We've obviously still we've already qualified for the third round. What can we expect from these two games?
2 wins.
You'd hope so. Yeah. Well, that's what we're expecting.
I think that's the bare minimum, basically. But
why is it so important?
Performance as well.
I mean, he was talking about why it's still important for the rankings, but I mean, we're coming up against opposition, and it's hard to not be disrespectful. I'm certainly not trying to do that, but in terms of when it does come to rankings, why should these games be important when it comes to rankings?
Well, you want to win and you want to get yourself the best ranking, so when you go through to further down in the tournament, you get a better pot draw and all that kind of stuff whenever you're going through tournaments. But it's a perfect opportunity, and I know he said he's not going to experiment too much, but it's a perfect opportunity to have a look at a few players, throw in there, and I still don't think he'll do it either, but potentially look at another way. Can he play two up top? You know, stuff like that. But I think Arnie will stick to the way he's been playing, and majority of the guys will be pretty similar.
And just on those rankings, if Australia win the 2 games, I think they're pretty close to South Korea in the AFC rankings. So if they manage to leapfrog the Koreans, then they'll get theoretically an easier draw in the final round of qualifying. So there is something at stake.
Now, as I said, there's 2 games left to round up the second qualifying round for the 2026 World Cup. It all kicks off exclusive on Paramount Plus on Thursday as the Socceroos take on Bangladesh, followed by the second game on Tuesday, the 11th of June in Perth, as the Socceroos take on Palestine. That game will be on 10 Bold and Paramount Plus. Let's take a look at the table as well as Group 1 sits. As I said, we're sitting top there, so ultimately we've qualified for that. But again, Palestine comes up in second, and that's who we're going to be taking on second. Shall we take a look at the squad? It's just been announced. It's always exciting when a new squad gets announced for the Socceroos. A couple of exciting names on there. We've got some new additions from the A-League. We've got some returning players from the A-League. And of course some promoted players as well. Maybe we can start talking about a few who we know. One person we weren't sure if he was going to be in or not, because it was down to himself. Nestori Irankunda, maybe we can talk about him for a little bit here. A lot has been said about Nestori. I look at him as a generational talent, of course. However, he's irked me a little bit with what he's been saying, and I know he has for an awful lot of people, but there's no denying the quality that he brings. Yeah,
a lot's been said, as you say, about Nestori, and Nestori's had a bit to say as well. So now it's time for him to show what he can do on the international stage. There was that little press conference outburst. I don't know if you call it an outburst. I know you didn't think too much of it, Macca, but no. Now he's got his place in the squad. He's yet to make his debut. There's no doubting his quality. Hopefully we're going to see that shine through when he goes to the Bundesliga with Bayern Munich as well. But first up, the Socceroos. I'd love to see him make his debut. I'd love to see him start. And I'd love to see him run at defenders and scare them. That's what he does.
Well, himself and Daniel Arzani are both those kind of players, aren't they? But I think we've seen him mature in the last 3 to 4 months in the A-League. Just small moments in matches earlier in the season, you'd see a little bit of petulance or a little bit of immaturity, I would say. We've seen that maturity come in, and I think that's probably swayed them a little bit to say, look, okay, they've been working really hard. I think Millsy's going to go into the camp as an assistant coach as well, Mark Milligan, who's worked with him closely, so that'll ease that process with him being in there and maybe keep him a little bit in check as well, say, come on, he's here to do the business. So I think it'll be good to see him finally get there. There's been a lot of talk about it. He is an unbelievable talent on the pitch, and let's hope that all works out for him now with all that stuff off the pitch as well. Yeah,
and no doubt it will. Like I said, it's just stuff like that just annoys me a little bit. But again, it's stages, and he's only a young kid. He's gone to Bayern as well. It's a lot ahead of him here as well. One player who is, I mean, it's great to see him in the squad, Apostolos Stamatolopoulos. You say his name the best, apparently.
I did see that piece that you did, yeah.
And he says it wrong.
But I guess before the Asian Cup, all the chat was, is it going to be Bruno? Is it going to be Tags? Is it going to be Stamatolopoulos? They went with Bruno, but now Stamatolopoulos makes it true to this squad. He's had a great season. He was superb in the A-Leagues. Granted, the opposition was a little bit poor. But talk to us about him, Aka, and coming into the squad and what he offers.
Yeah, look, I think he's a really good all-round 9. He comes and links the play well. He's extremely good in the air, as you can see from the highlights here. But he comes to the ball, holds the play up, gets players to come forward up the pitch, and then when he's in the box, he is lethal. He can make heading look very simple. His timing and his timing of his runs and his timing of meeting the ball in flight is sensational. He works very, very hard at it. He always has for the last few years, and I think he's went away overseas, got some valuable experience overseas, and come back, and we've really seen a difference in him this year. And it's great to see him. I thought he might have been in the last one, but he's had to bide his time, and I think this is a good opportunity for him to show what he can do in the national.
He's a late bloomer, isn't he?
Yeah.
AP, and I agree with Maka. I think that overseas experience has done him the world of good, and he's now at a club where obviously he's the main man. He's obviously trusted to play that central striking role. I think in his earlier days he was played wider, which is not really his go. So I'd love to see him get an opportunity and see if he can translate that club form onto the international stage.
Well, what else do you think that he offers? He's a bit of an unconventional target man, I suppose, because he's shorter than you'd expect to be a target man, maybe? No? When it comes to Adam Taggart
was shorter.
Well, of course,
yeah,
for
ball
sure.
as well.
but I guess when I hear target man, I always think of that big. I probably think, I don't know their height story, but just off the top of my head, I'm thinking Mitch Duke. Like, I feel like he plays that way for Australia, and I think of Taggart that way as well.
I think in the modern day, there is still room for the old-fashioned big number 9 as we used to see it, but. You look at the players in the Socceroos squad, or have been in the past. Mitch Duke aside, you're looking at Jamie McLaren. He's not a traditional number 9 in the physical sense. Adam Taggart is exactly the same. Even Matt Leckie, who can play there, is obviously a bit more physical, but he's not your classic target man. So I think that the game has evolved, from the days where Maka was a number 9.
Yeah, where they were just big lumps.
I should have said your name.
You weren't a traditional number 9, really, were you?
Well, not near the end. I was just everywhere, But I think the old traditional 9 had to be big and strong. But I think the game has developed that you can be strong without being that big guy. And he's quick. So if teams want to press and he wants to make runs in behind, he's an outlet, Stamatolopoulos on that one. But he's also good in the air and he's strong without being a big unit.
Yeah, it's someone who is a big presence, and he's come back he's come into the Australia squad. I was always questioning for a long time where he was. Paul Izzo, Matty Ryan obviously misses out. Paul Izzo comes in. He's had a great season for Victory. Victory had a decent season as well.
Yeah, terrific. Highlighted by this game against Melbourne City, where to be honest, that's the best goalkeeper performance I think I've ever seen in the A-League. He was unbeatable that day. So I think he's earned his chance. Again, another late bloomer. He's 29, but goalkeepers develop later. Again, he's had that stint overseas, playing for Xanthi in Greece. Too many there. And I think he's mature and ready for his opportunity. I don't think he'll probably play. He'll probably be in there for experience. Joe Gouch will probably be the number 1, but he's earned it.
He could be the ready replacement for Andrew Redmayne for the penalties. The way he's performed towards the end of the season, well, we saw Redders get put on in the last minute. Yeah. Maybe he's putting a hand up when they're having a look at him for that as well.
Well, this shows we're spoiled between the nets, of course. Lawrence Thompson is there. We'll talk about him, Thomas, a little bit later as well. But how about Nizzy for the Mariners? Another great season. There's calls from everywhere to be in the squad. He's in the squad. Whether he plays or not is a different thing, but how important is it for our A-League to be represented as it is? Oh,
massively. Look, and I thought Nizzy was probably a little bit nervous in his debut for the Socceroos. He came on and he was a little bit not himself. He was a little bit all over the place, but he's kicked on since then. Johnny Warren medalist. He's won everything you can win now in the Australian football, apart from the Australia Cup, and epitomises him is the goal in the 91st minute in the grand final. Ball comes into him, 5 Melbourne Victory players around him, the composure to bring that ball in and just weight it perfectly for Edmondson. Just shows that in the big moments he can be there, and he's added goals, he's added assists even more so to his game as he's moved a little bit further forward. Do I think he'll start? No, but I think he's an able replacement for any of the others that are in there now.
Great. When it comes to Arzani, he's a player that always gets people excited. He's had a good season since he moved to Victory as well. Seems like the Arzani of old, maybe. Yeah,
I think Tony Popovic has got his head back in the game. He's, like Nestori, I think, matured a lot as a player this season. Some of his decision-making is a lot better. The fact that he tracks back now and helps his defence out a lot more than he used to in his earlier days is a big bonus to his game. He hasn't represented the Socceroos since 2018, which I had to read twice when I saw it. I was like, wow, that's gone quickly.
Yeah.
And you remember him emerging as this, teen sensation, and he's had to take a couple of steps back to take a step forward. But as I say, I think Popper's got him on the right track, and I'm excited to see what he can do. Back on the international stage again. The same with Nestori. There's no doubting his ability. Now he's got to show it.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting.
I was a bit sceptical, I'll be honest. At the start of the year, I actually thought this could be his last year to make that chance.
It was a big season, wasn't it?
It was a huge season for him, and he took a little while to get going, but I think he came home like a steam train at the end of the season. His ability to run at players, take people on. He's the 4th highest chances created in the A-League, so it shows that he's putting it there. Maybe his teammates weren't putting in it as much, but I think he has stepped back up to that next level to say, yeah, look, here I am again, and he needed to this year.
Yeah, I guess what's exciting about this squad as well, there's always been a chat for a long time in where Australian players sit around the world in terms of top flight when they're playing in that. We've got a lot of promoted players this year as well. St. Pauli's come up, obviously, so Jackson Irvine's there, Conor Metcalf. Chikati is going to be playing Serie A football next season, and it kills me, but I'm also happy for him. Cam Burgess gone up to the Premiership.
Sorry about Leeds.
Yeah, no, right. Well, I mean, I'm happy for him. Of course I am. But how important is this to be playing again in the top 5 leagues across the world, and how do you think they'll fare?
Well, it's huge. Yeah. You need your players to be at the highest level as possible, so they get that exposure to that level, and when they come back to their national teams, it's not so much of a huge step. They've been around that environment. Now to have in this squad 7 players next year will be in the top 5 leagues in Europe. The only problem you can look at it and maybe say is that sometimes when you get promoted, they start to go,
they buy better players.
We'll go and buy some better players, and that's no disrespect to our boys, but that is the one. They've got to get there, and you want them playing there. That's the big caveat that you want with it. Joe Gauchi's probably the one exception that it's going to be difficult for him, but the rest, they've all had big minutes and they've had big hands in their teams getting promoted. So I think they would be disappointed if they got there and then went, all right, we're going to move you out of the starting teams.
The exception, of course, is Harry Soto, who's also been promoted, technically with Leicester City, but he's barely played. So, Arnie has said that this international window is basically a shop window for him to try and get a move elsewhere, and he needs to, really, because he's barely played all season.
Yeah, well, I guess when we break it down that way, this game is going to be huge. Kicks off, like I said, on Thursday as the Socceroos take on Bangladesh, and it's exclusive to Paramount+.
And Geordie Boss with his very first international goal. Here's Jackson Irvine. It's there for Australia. Jackson Irvine. Good win. Craig Goodwin on the volley. Metcalf. He dinks the ball back in. Great header. Mitch Duke, the main man at the helm of the Socceroos attack. Now Boss, good ball, back post, cleared. Borello, first time off the post, and Mitch Duke at the double. 2 goals in 2.5 minutes.
That, of course, was Mitchell Duke's brace the last time we came up against Bangladesh in November in a 7-0 win. We're going to take a look at the opposition now in the next 2 games. Guys, let's talk about Bangladesh first. 7-0 back in November. What did we learn about them, and what can we expect to be any different this time round?
Well, I don't think there's going to be too much difference. I think, no disrespect to Bangladesh, you can see there, their world ranking's 183. I think the biggest opponent for the Socceroos is going to be the weather. It's tipped to be 36 degrees. It'll be a dominant display, and I really don't think whatever keeper is in goals for the Socceroos is going to get too much of a workout, because I think we'll see more of the same. There is just such a big gulf between the two. They've only scored 1 goal so far in qualification, and I barely see them troubling the scorers.
Yeah, I think there's only 2 problems for Australia. One, as Macca says, the conditions. Secondly, any complacency. Because they are harder to beat at home than they were in Melbourne, that's for sure. They got a draw against Lebanon. They were only beaten by Palestine by a 95th minute injury time goal. So they'll defend in depth. It'll be a low block. They've got 2 or 3 half decent players. They're all defensive. Topu Barman, Who's had interest from overseas. Tariq Kazi, who's actually won the Finnish Cup with Ilves, so he's had a little bit of European experience. And the defensive midfielder and captain Jamal Bouyan, who is probably their best player and has just come back from a stint playing in the 3rd division in Argentina. So, you know, the rest are domestic-based players. They're not great. They are, to be kind, an emerging football nation. And Australia should have way too much for them.
Great stuff, Simon. Someone's been reading the internet. Fair play to you.
Absolutely, that's what I do.
No, it's great. It's great to know. What about Palestine? Because we found it tough to beat them. Granted, probably the conditions as well. Back in November, 1-0 win to us. They're second in the group.
Yeah, I think they'll be a little bit more difficult. You know, we saw when we played them in the reverse game, which was on neutral territory, and obviously they had a big fan base behind them. Mind you, I'm sure they probably will do in Perth as well. Yeah. That they are stubborn and difficult to break down. It was only Harry Sutar's goal that divided the two teams. And if you remember, I think Matty Ryan had to make one very good save towards the end as well. So, you know, they're a better team than Bangladesh, but Australia are at home, of course. And with home advantage, big crowd behind them, I think this will probably again be more straightforward. That's save from Matty Ryan.
Yeah, look, I think I also think that it depends on their result in this next game as well. If they get through a result in the next game before they meet Australia, they've qualified through.
Against Lebanon.
Against Lebanon, yeah. So all they need to do is draw there. So that we may see a completely changed team for them who say, oh, we're through now, let's throw some young guys in. So I think it'll depend on this Thursday's games on what we'll see them. But either way, I think the Australians should be too good.
Now, as we know, Sydney FC won the Australia Cup. The playoffs are happening in Darwin later next month. You do not want to miss that.
Swings in the cross, teasing for Mileušnić. Give it away here, Taggart, shoot on sight. Oh, Taggart! Moragas, he gets there, the ball in. Stamatolopoulos with Danzaki. He shoots, oh, he arrows it into the bottom corner.
You know, while I was a free agent just at the end of my time with Hibernian, and I was, you know, sitting with my girlfriend and we were kind of talking about possible options moving forward for us, and she just turned to me and said, can't you just go play for like that punk club? You know, that like cool punk club? And I was like, oh yeah. And then 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from St. Pauli, so sometimes it's meant to be.
When we look around the stadium, there's Australian flags there. There's even an Aboriginal flag in the stadium. So I think, yeah, there's a little soft spot for me and Jacko.
This is really exciting. You get to see the full feature in the pre-game on Thursday as Socceroos take on Bangladesh. Just a reminder, the 2 games that are coming up, we have the Socceroos taking on Bangladesh on Thursday, and then the second game we're going to take on Palestine in Perth. You do not want to miss that one. Again, Bangladesh, that game is going to be on Paramount Plus. You can catch the other game on 10 Play and Paramount Plus. Now guys, we've just talked about the players who've made it into the squad. Obviously when someone makes it in, someone has to miss out. Is there any surprise exclusions from this squad, or anyone who you would have liked to have seen in the squad?
I think we're in agreement.
We're in agreement here. Yeah, a couple of fullbacks that we thought may have got a look in. Right and left. Jacob Farrell for me has been exceptional this year, and last year, and was it the year before as well? And I just thought he may have got a little look in on this one. And on the other side, we've both had this discussion a few times, haven't we? Jason Guerrier. I know he's 31 years of age now, but I just think he's an exceptional right back. He gets forward. He's added a goal recently for the first time in a long time. But for us, those two really, I think they could have had a look in. And I know Jacob Farrell's young and he's got a lot of time ahead of him. But for me, he could be, him and Geordie Boss, the 2 left backs for the next World Cup. So why not get him in and have a look at him?
Yeah, I mean, the reason for me thinking that Jacob Farrell should be in there as well is, and this is nothing against Aziz Bayic, who had been brilliant at left back for years for Australia, but we know what Aziz can do. He's not played an awful lot of football because of injury at Al Nassr, where he's been on loan from Melbourne City. Geordie Boss is probably going to be the long-term, left back, but. Why not bring Jacob Farrell in and have a look at him? And I agree with Jason Guerrier. For me, has been the most consistent right back in in the A-League this season. So, yeah, a bit of a head scratcher as to why he's not going to go, but there you go.
Yeah,
that's why we don't pick the team.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, yeah. So what can we expect, or what do you want to see? Obviously, we want to get the win there, but in terms of, is it enough for the players to be there, or do we need to see them on the pitch? You know, we saw what happened with Bruno when he went to the Asian Cup as well.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I would be starting, and I'm not saying that Arnie's going to do this because he said he's not going to use it as an experimentation window, but you know, I'd be wanting to look at Daniel Arzani, I'd be wanting to look at Nestor Irankunda, I'd be wanting to look at Apostolos Stamatolopoulos. If you brought them into the squad, then you know you want to see what they can do. So I'd love to see those three start as a front three against Bangladesh, because that for me is the slightly easier game of the two. But you know, I'm not on the ground. I don't know what the conditions are like. I don't know what Arnie's priorities are. But for me personally, I'd like to see those three start.
I can't disagree on any of that.
Would you like to see a different formation or something? Or I mean, what else could we get from this?
I always think that you want to have a plan B. And I know we're going back a long way, but Arnie used to always say to us, you need a plan B and even maybe a C if things aren't going your way. So it'd be nice to see, you know, plenty of nines in that squad. Why not see how they go as a two, and can they work together? You know, if things aren't going your way and you need to break down an opposition. Yeah. I would like to see it. I don't think it will happen though with Arnie.
Well, we don't have long to wait. Bielsa always said, your plan B is make plan B better. Plan A better.
Well, it's hard. It's easy for him to say, but not you.
Bielsa, well, he was. You know, he didn't speak English. Yeah, neither did I. Like I said, we don't have long to wait. The first game kicks off on Thursday, exclusive to Paramount Plus. From myself and from the boys, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for being with us.